The evening was quiet when Baris finished his work and stepped outside. The city was glowing beneath the soft lights, yet he felt unusually thoughtful. His phone vibrated. A message from Elson. "Are you free tomorrow?" Baris smiled before replying. "I think I can make time." "Why?" A few moments later, her answer appeared. "I'd like to see you." He looked at the message again. There was something simple about those words, yet they carried a feeling he could not quite explain. The next afternoon, they met at a small cafe away from the busiest streets. Elson arrived first. She sat near the window, watching people pass outside. When Baris entered, she looked up and smiled. "Hi." "Hi." They sat across from each other. For the first few minutes, they talked about ordinary things. Work. Travel. Life. The projects that had kept them busy. But eventually, the conversation became quieter. Elson looked at him. "I've been thinking about something." "What?" "New beginnings." Baris smiled. "That sounds serious." "Maybe it is." She looked outside. "Sometimes we think a new beginning means leaving everything behind." "And you don't think that anymore?" She shook her head. Baris understood what she meant. "Like the past." "Exactly." For a moment, neither spoke. They both knew there were memories between them that had never completely disappeared. Years had passed, but certain moments remained surprisingly clear. Elson smiled. "Do you remember how we used to talk for hours?" Baris laughed. "Yes." "And then wonder why we were tired the next morning?" "You were usually the one who wanted to keep talking." She smiled. "That is not true." "It is." They laughed together. The moment felt natural. There was no pressure. No need to explain everything. Just familiarity. After their coffee, they decided to walk. The afternoon air was pleasant, and the streets were quieter than usual. Elson looked around. "It's strange." "What?" "How familiar everything feels." Baris nodded. "Maybe some things don't change as much as we think." They continued walking. Eventually, they reached a small park. They sat on a bench beneath a large tree. Elson looked at him. "Do you ever wonder what your life would look like if you had made different choices?" "All the time." "Do you regret them?" "Some." She nodded. "But not everything?" "No." "Why?" "Because every choice brought me here." Elson smiled. "That sounds like something you would say. Is that a good thing?" "Yes." She looked down for a moment. "I used to think that if something ended, it meant it wasn't meant to continue." Baris listened carefully. "And now?" "Now I think some things simply need time." He looked at her. "Time can change people." "Yes." "Sometimes for the better." She smiled. "I think so." A gentle breeze moved through the trees. For a while, they watched people walking through the park. Children laughed in the distance. Someone was riding a bicycle. The world continued moving around them. But for a few moments, it felt as though time had slowed down. Elson finally spoke. "I don't want to repeat the past." Baris nodded. "Neither do I. I want something different." "What kind of different?" She smiled. "Something honest." He looked at her. "That's a good place to start." She nodded. "I think so too." Their conversation continued until the sun began to set. When they finally stood, neither seemed eager to leave. Elson smiled. "Today was nice." "It was." "Maybe we should do this again." Baris smiled. "Maybe?" She laughed. "All right. Definitely." "Good." They walked toward their cars. Before saying goodbye, Elson turned around. "Baris?" "Yes." "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for asking." She smiled. Then they went their separate ways. But this time, something felt different. Neither of them was looking backward anymore. They were thinking about tomorrow. The next morning, Baris received a message. I have an idea. He smiled. Should I be worried? No. You should be curious. I'm listening. Let's spend an entire day without planning anything. Baris laughed. That sounds like a plan. Exactly. No schedule. He replied. Then I'm in. The following day, they met again. There was no formal plan. No special destination. They simply drove outside the city. They stopped whenever something caught their attention. They visited a small bookstore. They had lunch at a quiet restaurant. They walked along a peaceful road surrounded by trees. They laughed about small things. They talked about big things. And slowly, they realized that the best moments did not require careful planning. At one point, Elson looked at Baris. This feels different. How? Easy. He smiled. Maybe that's what we needed. What? Something that doesn't need to be forced. She nodded. I like that. They continued walking. As the afternoon light began to fade, Elson stopped beside a quiet overlook. The view stretched far into the distance. She took a deep breath. I think I understand something now. What? A new beginning doesn't have to erase the old story. Baris looked at her. It can simply become the next chapter. She smiled. Exactly. They stood quietly. Neither knew what the future would bring, but they no longer needed to know. For the first time, they were comfortable with uncertainty. They had memories. They had changed. They had grown. And now they had something else. A chance. Not a chance to become who they once were. A chance to discover who they could become together now. As the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, Baris smiled. Ready? Elson smiled back. For what? For the next chapter. She nodded. Yes. And together, they walked toward the waiting car, leaving the old questions behind and carrying only the memories that still mattered. A new beginning had quietly started. The next morning, Elson woke with a peaceful feeling she had not experienced in a long time. The previous day had been simple. There had been no grand plans, no complicated conversations, and no expectations. Yet somehow, it had meant more than she expected. She reached for her phone. There was already a message from Baris. Good morning. I think yesterday deserves a second day. Elson smiled. She replied. I was thinking the same thing. A few seconds later, another message appeared. Then coffee. Coffee. They met later that morning at the same quiet cafe where they had first talked about starting again. Baris arrived with 2 coffees. Elson looked at him and laughed. You remembered my order. Of course. She took the cup. Thank you. They sat near the window. For a while, they simply enjoyed the morning. Then Elson looked at him. Do you realize something? What? We've stopped talking about the past. Baris smiled. I noticed. And that's a good thing. Why? Because we're finally talking about today. He nodded. I like today. She smiled. So do I. Their conversation moved naturally toward the future. Elson talked about places she wanted to visit. Baris shared some of his own plans. They discovered that they both wanted more quiet moments away from busy schedules. Maybe we should travel somewhere, Elson suggested. Baris looked interested. Where? Somewhere neither of us has been. That's a challenge. Exactly. He laughed. I'm willing to accept it. They spent the next hour looking at different possibilities. Eventually, they chose a peaceful coastal town they had both heard about but never visited together. The trip would be short. Just a couple of days. But neither cared about the length. It was the idea that excited them. A new place. A new memory. A new chapter. Several days later, they arrived. The sea stretched endlessly before them. The weather was gentle, and the town was quiet. Elson stepped out of the car and looked around. This is perfect. Bari smiled. I knew you'd like it. They walked toward the shore. The sound of the waves filled the air. For a while, they simply walked. No phones. No schedules. No distractions. Eventually, they sat near the water. Elson looked at the horizon. Do you ever think about how strange life is? All the time. One day you're somewhere completely different. And the next, you find yourself sitting here. Bari smiled. Life has good timing sometimes. She looked at him. Sometimes very good timing. They laughed. The afternoon passed slowly. They explored the town, discovered a small cafe, and talked to local shop owners. At one point, Elson found a little bookstore. She stopped immediately. Bari's laughed. I knew we'd end up here. I can't walk past a bookstore. She picked up a book and turned toward him. Look at this. What is it? A collection of stories about second chances. He smiled. Of course you found that. She laughed. Maybe it found me. They bought the book and continued walking. Later that evening, they sat outside a small restaurant. The lights around them were warm and soft. Elson looked across the table. I'm glad we came. So am I. Do you feel like something has changed? Bari's nodded. Yes. What? I don't feel like we're trying to understand what happened anymore. She waited. We're just enjoying what is happening now. Elson smiled. That makes me happy. After dinner, they walked along the shore. The sky was clear. The water reflected the moonlight. Elson stopped. Listen. To what? The waves. Bari smiled. You brought me all the way here to listen to water? She laughed. Maybe. I suppose it's worth it. They stood quietly. Then Elson said, I used to think happiness had to be complicated. Bari's looked at her. And now? Now I think it can be this. This? A walk. A conversation. A quiet evening. He smiled. I agree. They continued walking. At one point, Bari's noticed something in the sand. A small seashell. He picked it up and handed it to Elson. For your collection. She laughed. I don't have a collection. You do now. She accepted it. Then I'll keep it. Good. The next morning, they woke early and watched the sunrise from the shore. Neither spoke for several minutes. The colors slowly changed across the sky. Elson smiled. I wish we could keep this moment. Bari's nodded. We can. How? Remember it. She looked at him. That's enough. Sometimes it is. She smiled. They returned to the town later that morning. Before leaving, they stopped at the bookstore again. Elson looked through the shelves. Bari's found the book about second chances. He picked it up. You forgot something. What? This. She laughed. I didn't forget it. You did. She took the book from him. Maybe I left it here on purpose. Why? So we'd have a reason to come back. Bari smiled. Then that's a good plan. They drove home that afternoon. The journey was quiet, but it was not an uncomfortable silence. They were both thinking about the same thing. The trip had given them more than a few beautiful memories. It had given them confidence. They no longer questioned whether this new beginning was real. They were living it. When they reached the city, Elson looked at Bari's. Promise me something. What? Don't let life become too busy again. He smiled. I'll try. No. She laughed. Promise. He nodded. I promise. She smiled. Good. They said goodbye. That evening, Elson placed the seashell on her desk. Beside it, she put the book they had bought. Two small objects. Two simple reminders. One of a peaceful day by the sea. The other of a new chapter that had only just begun. Across the city, Baris looked at a photograph from their trip. He smiled. For years, he had believed that some moments belonged only to the past. Now he understood something different. The past could give you memories, but the present could give you another chance to create new ones. His phone vibrated. A message from Elson appeared. "When are we planning our next adventure?" Baris smiled. He typed. "I thought you said no more plans." Her answer came quickly. "I changed my mind." He laughed. "Then we'll make a plan," she replied. Together. Baris looked at the word for a moment. Together. It was simple, but it carried a meaning that neither of them wanted to ignore. Their new beginning was no longer just an idea. It was becoming a part of their everyday lives. And somewhere between old memories and new